I'm just going to apologize in advance for the amount of background noise that this video is going to have. The dryer is running, the air conditioner is running, the fan is running. There's probably going to be a lot of humming noises in this video, so I just thought that I'd apologize for that before we really get into the video. Babies. Some are cute, some give me nightmares, some are goofy, some drive, but everyone started out as a baby. Even you. But these are the only babies I know of that got their own cartoon. Yeah, it's time to talk about Rugrats. Actually, this video is going to be split into 4 parts. One part about Rugrats, one part about preschool days, one part about All Grown Up, and one part that's just going to be kind of commentary and theories about where these characters could eventually end up. Basically just my personal fan ideas of where these characters would be had the series continued any further than middle school. Like, say these characters were in high school, university, or graduated university. Like, we followed these characters all the way to adulthood instead of just middle school. So without further ado, this is part 1. Rugrats. Rugrats was a cartoon that ran throughout the 90s and early 2000s and gained itself 9 seasons. The show was about a group of babies and toddlers just kind of living their lives, which sounds like it should be boring, but the show is actually very entertaining. The show's sense of humor is brilliant, having jokes that kids get, having jokes that adults get that kids might not get, and of course having humor that anyone who's ever had a child or babysat a child can really relate to. Like things that the babies do in the show that every baby does in real life, or things that the toddlers will say to their parents that everybody has heard a toddler say to their parents before. Just very relatable humor revolving around little kids. The show makes me very nostalgic because for these little kids, every day in the backyard, everything they do for fun is a full-on adventure. It really brings you back to when you were a little kid, and something as simple as playing with a stick in the backyard or playing with sand in a sandbox could really feel like you were on some sort of epic quest. I think another thing that really helped the show out was having really memorable characters. We had Tommy as the optimistic leader, Chucky as the nervous scaredy cat best friend, the twins Phil and Lil as really just the funniest characters in the show, Angelica, who served as Tommy's bratty older cousin, and Susie, who often served as a moral compass for Angelica, often foiling her plans and trying to convince her not to pick on the babies so much. Later on in the series run, we actually got 2 Rugrats movies, both introducing new characters that would become part of the main cast for the show. Rugrats the movie gifted us with Tommy's baby brother Dylan, or Dill Pickles, and Rugrats in Paris introduced Chucky's stepsister Kimmy, who mostly served as a way to give more character development to Chucky because now he feels responsible for someone. She's his little sister, he feels that he has to look after her, so she mostly just existed to further his character. However, she does work well in her own right, being a very brave and adventurous character. Both of these characters were nice new faces to see in the show, and were definitely a welcome addition to the Rugrats cast. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why I didn't talk too much about the movies, those are both getting their own videos at some point. Rugrats was a really simple show, but it's a lot of fun to watch. It's very funny, and it's very nostalgic for me. I really like this show. I think of it as being one of the best cartoons from my childhood, and it's definitely on the list of kids shows that I find funnier than shows that are made for adults, like Family Guy and Futurama, stuff like that. Now it's time for part 2, preschool days. It happened, it didn't last long, it's not hard to tell why, let's move on. All Grown Up is the 3rd incarnation of the Rugrats, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The Rugrats cast, but they're older. All Grown Up is a bit of a stretch though, because most of them are in middle school in this show, with Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil being in the 6th grade, and Angelica and Susie being in the 8th grade. The only exception to this is Dill, who's in probably 5th grade. He's supposed to be 9, 4th or 5th grade, but there's a nice work around that with the fact that they all go to a community school for plot convenience. This way the entire cast can all go to the same school and interact with one another at said school without having to completely ignore the major age difference between certain characters such as Susie and Dill, who would have an age gap of about 4 or 5 years. It's a simple workaround that you completely buy, being that a lot of towns do have community schools that go all the way from kindergarten till the end of middle school. In fact, there's one less than 10 minutes away from my house. So I do give the writers a big pat on the back for finding a way to have all these characters go to the same school without compromising the continuity from the original show. Speaking of continuity, the characters look and act exactly how you would picture these toddlers and babies looking and acting as middle schoolers. Tommy is your average nice guy with big ambitions for being a filmmaker. Chucky is a nerdy, nervous hypochondriac who's always worried about something. Phil and Lil are both athletic types who are trying to find their own individuality, trying to find their own interests and personality traits instead of just being known as each other's twins, while still hanging out together and still having the same friend group as one another. Typically, episodes that revolve around these two are some of the best, as the idea of following two characters that have always been associated with each other, who are in the show trying not to be associated with one another while still being friends, is just a really complicated storyline. Or more, a complicated situation. The storyline is easy to understand, but the situation is complicated to be in. Anyone who has siblings at all knows what it's like to be compared to your siblings either by people at school or by your teachers, and you know how annoying that can be. The relationship dynamic between these two as both friends and siblings is one of the best parts of the show, just like it was in the original show. Angelica is a rude, annoying girl obsessed with popularity, and as much as she annoys me, you can tell that the fact that she is annoying is entirely intentional, just like it was in the original series, and the way she's portrayed as a character makes so much sense with the way she was in the original show. Susie is pretty much exactly how she was in the original show. She's just Angelica's best friend and her moral compass. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Much like the original show, a lot of the time Kimmy is only there to give Chucky somebody to protect and care about, but it's nice to see that happen. The relationship as step-siblings is very believable and likable, and when Kimmy is on her own without Chucky, she's still a pretty interesting character. For example, there's an episode where she finds out that her biological father is having another baby, and she gets worried that he won't come see her anymore, and that she's being replaced. This type of story has been done a million times in other shows. It was even done twice in the original show. But there's something about her particular situation of having divorced parents and living with her stepfather and stepbrother and rarely ever seeing her father because he lives in another country. Something about all that really makes this particular telling of this story a lot more interesting than other variations. Dill is the standout character of the show. You would think that the 9-year-old would be the character you want to spend the least amount of time with, but I would want to be friends with this dude. In fact, I have been friends with people like this dude. In fact, I have been this dude. But he's just the most entertaining character to me. This character always wears a winter hat with chattering teeth on the end of it. He created his own religion. He just spends so much time saying and doing so much weird stuff that you love him. He is so much fun to watch in every scene. But he's weirdly also the most relatable character because even though he says and does the strangest things, he's played off as the everyman. See, unlike the other characters, Dill never really had an established personality in the original show, being that he spent the whole series as less than a year old. He was the only character that didn't talk. You could literally take his character anywheres when you bring him into an environment where he'll be older, and they went the best possible direction with it. He's the type of character that you look at and you say, yeah, he's gonna smoke weed in high school. His interactions with the other characters are always so entertaining too because they work off each other so well. It's like even though they're cartoons and you know they're not real, you still feel like you're watching a group of people that have known each other since they were babies. I know it's strange to say, but there genuinely is so much chemistry between all of these characters, especially any character interacting with Dill at any time. This kid's closest friend is the principal of his school, who he often gives love life advice to. Dill is literally just the obligatory stoner character that every TV show has. He just happens to be 9 years old in the process. Rock on, Dill Pickles. Rock on. Much like the original series, All Grown Up is pretty much just watching these characters' everyday lives. It's a Boy Meets World style sitcom. You just watch days happening. And I'm okay with that because I've grown to like that sort of show. And being that the characters are older now, the show has to work in more important messages, such as topics involving divorce and addiction. When I was younger, I actually preferred All Grown Up to the original Rugrats, but now that I'm older, I do like Rugrats more. I like the original a lot more now. That's not to say I don't like All Grown Up anymore, I still like it a lot, but the reason I liked it so much when I was younger was just because I was watching characters close to my age go through things that kids my age go through, and that I personally would go through at school all the time, so it made the show a lot more relatable to me, so I connected with it more than I connected to the original Rugrats. However, now that I'm older, I have a much greater appreciation for the humorous writing that was given to us by Rugrats. I've also spent a lot more time around toddlers and babies now, so there's a lot of jokes in the original Rugrats that I wouldn't have caught when I was little, just jokes about things that babies and toddlers do that don't make a lot of sense, that I never really would have caught on to when I was younger, that I do understand now because I've babysat a lot more now. So that's definitely given me a greater appreciation for the humor in Rugrats. Both of these cartoons are really good and I highly recommend checking them out. But also, in both scenarios, I would recommend checking out the later seasons. Not that the earlier seasons of either shows are bad, but they definitely figured out how to find their footing in the later seasons for each show. So for Rugrats, I'd recommend seasons 6 to 9, and for All Grown Up, I'd recommend seasons 3 to 5. Okay, I'm just gonna say this now, the background noise should be gone now. Sorry I didn't get rid of it earlier, I just really didn't want to leave my air conditioning because it gets really hot in my house at night. And I tried using a noise reduction tool, but it muffled my words, so that wasn't really an option. Anyways, now I'm going to move on to the part 4 of my video, which is really just kind of where I would see these characters being later on in their lives. And I know technically there is another Rugrats show I could talk about. There's a reboot that happened recently, but I haven't seen it and I don't really intend to see it, mostly just because I don't see a reason to. I already watched the original Rugrats. I know it's not going to be better than the original. It's probably not going to be as good as the original. I don't like the animation style either. And to me, it'd just be like if they announced tomorrow that they were going to reboot The Simpsons from scratch and just do it in 3D animation. Why would you bother watching that when you can just watch Simpsons reruns? Also, I'm not going to start paying for Paramount Plus just so I can watch the Rugrats reboot that I don't want to watch. So here's my ideas for where the Rugrats characters from the original show would be had we gotten to see them get even older. I picture Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, and Kimmy all being in university, and for the sake of storytelling, I think you have to pull a Boy Meets World and have them all go to the same university, regardless on how realistic or sensical it is. I picture Dill in his senior year of high school, hopefully just as bizarre as ever. I picture Angelica struggling to find herself now that she's done with both high school and college. What's she going to do for a living? Where is she going to do it? Is she going to live in a house or apartment? I picture Angelica on the brink of making big life decisions. I see Susie with a high-paying job, married, living in a house, probably with a baby of her own. A symbolic way of showing how things can go full circle in life. I'd like to see the relationship dynamics between characters grow and evolve, now that the characters are older, in late high school, university, done university. I'd like to see them dating. There was already a subplot in All Grown Up about Kimmy having a crush on Tommy. What if at this point they're dating or engaged? I'd also like to see Tommy and Chucky as roommates. And as the show would go on, and eventually Dill would join them in university, I'd like to see him and Phil become roommates. Kimmy and Lil as roommates, relationship dynamics that we've seen make sense in the past. I just like the idea of truly seeing these characters all grown up. It would definitely be one of the first cartoons to fully cover the life of a character from being an infant to being an adult, especially over the course of 4 different shows. I kind of hope that the Rugrats reboot doesn't make Paramount very much money, and they consider continuing the story of the Rugrats at an older age like they've done before. The thing I liked the most about Boy Meets World was the fact that we got to see Corey from age 11 to age 19, and then by Girl Meets World we got to see him in his 30s. There's something very emotional and powerful about getting to see a character's entire life play out on screen. It gives you a connection with them that you wouldn't really have watching any other type of TV show. And with Rugrats being an animated series, there's really no limit to what you could do. These characters can be as old or as young as you want, you just have to draw them that way and make their voices sound that way. The capabilities for an animated project like that are endless. You could have All Grown Up continue, you could have a separate show where they're in university, and you could have the original Rugrats continue as long as you kept the continuities intertwined. You never do anything in one show that contradicts another. It's a way that you could have 3 successful TV shows going at the same time, all revolving around the same set of characters. The idea of keeping the original continuity alive is just something that I really like, and I don't think it would be that hard to do. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about Rugrats, so drop a like on this video if you liked this video, and subscribe if you want to see more nerdy content like this. That's all for this video, so have a good day.